Twila Maniputnik, Twila Wakanapatnik. So na Ghana be called McLaughlan, but we're Changa Ghana Mina. Minana Maniputji, no Nari Kamatri America, no one of the Manipuni Ganiata, na Indiata, Tanda Wama, Yacha, Pandu, Sudag Nicholls, Irabina, Wira, Wama, Popi. Hello and welcome to the lands of the Ghana people. Today we sit upon what is known as the Kangaroo Oval, being Adelaide Oval. It is my pleasure to welcome our wonderful guests here for what is to be a special week, a week of the Indigenous round, the Sudug Nicholls round. And we as Aboriginal people played the Pandu, being the possum skin ball game, but it was a game very similar to what is today played on this wonderful field here today. I am known as Mickey O'Brien. I am known as also the impatient one and that of 6 children. I am a Ghana man born on the Adelaide Plains. And today I'm going to hand these leaves to pass on and take a leaf and then pass it on, because we say Nada Nabu Kamaka Yara Kumanini, which means today we give, we receive, becoming one. And like Reconciliation Week is, it is about recognising those who've come before us and those who connect to us. And it's about giving and it is about receiving. And so it's going to be a wonderful week of having those battle on the field, being the Warriors, and for not the possum skin ball, but the kangaroo skin ball. And so it's my pleasure to welcome you here today and to help launch the Indigenous round. So I say, Nachi Yukandaya, Nachi Yakandaya, Padmia do it, saying we are all brothers and sisters. When we walk together, we do it in harmony. We never say goodbye, we always say see you later, because we have no word for goodbye. So Nakara, Chaya, thank you for coming to Adelaide and to bring this wonderful game of the Sudug Nicholls round. So Nakara, Chaya, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks, Lachie.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Nice having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Uncle Mickey, and I also would like to acknowledge that we're on the lands of the Ghana peoples of the Adelaide Plains region, and acknowledge their amazing custodianship of this land for generations and generations, where we get to enjoy footy amongst other things. On behalf of the AFL, it's my privilege to be part of officially launching the 2022 Toyota AFL Sudug Nicholls round. Season 22 marks the 16th year in which the AFL has put a special focus and light on the contribution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander players, coaches, umpires and administrators who've contributed to this great game over the years, and provide a great contribution to our communities through sport. This year, the round coincides with a very special anniversary for the nation, and we're thrilled to have the support of the Mabo family to bring recognition and celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Mabo decision from the High Court in 1992. It's not just a reference to the castle, it is actually when the High Court of Australia, and think about it, only 30 years ago, acknowledged in law that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have always been here. A really, really significant anniversary, and not something that happened easily, something that was fought hard for. It's a significant moment in the recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's rights, and the AFL acknowledges the legacy of Torres Strait Islander Eddie Koiki Mabo and the other claimants for the outcome of this remarkable decision in 1992. The Sudug Nicholls round is, become so big and so great that it now takes us 2 rounds to really fully celebrate it. So it is celebrated over rounds 10 and 11. It is an opportunity to think about, show respect and honour and celebrate the amazing contributions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander players on the field, but also be thinking about their voices and perspectives that they share with us to help educate us as a nation off the field. It's also worth saying, I think, because it is sadly still relevant, that the AFL does reject all forms of racism and discrimination at every level of the game, and we remain committed to working together to achieve the common goal of eradicating racism out of our game, because our game can only be bigger and better when we get that done, and it's going to take all of us working together for that to happen. So over the next 2 weeks, though, we really do want to have a celebratory round of football in both of those weeks. Again, celebrating the enormous contribution that has been made. It's often been said that without Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the game, where would it be? They certainly give us a lot to cheer for. We're thrilled to be joined by Wayne and Lachie today, and certainly for me, really I feel honoured to have Gil here since it's your last Sir Doug Nicholls round, and thank you for getting on a plane and sharing it with me today.
Thanks, Tans, and I echo your welcome. Thank you, Uncle Mickey. It was a great welcome to the country, and thanks for having us on your land. Wayne, Lachie, thanks for being here. Thanks everyone for coming. It's great to actually be launching Sir Doug Nicholls round nationally this year. It is a national round, as Tan said. It's over a couple of weeks because all clubs want to have their opportunity to host a home game. One of the great traditions that's emerged in recent years of Sir Doug Nicholls round is being able to honour and celebrate a past First Nations player and their contribution to the game. And they are generally both a champion player and someone who's shown fearless leadership off the field as well. We started with the great Graham Polly Farmer in 2018, Michael Long in 2019, Sid Jackson over 2020 and 2021 in the COVID impacted years. And it's I've got great pleasure in announcing that Western Australian football legend and a proud Aboriginal man, Bill Dempsey, has been named as the 2022 Sir Doug Nicholls round honoree. His accolades are significant. A few I'll call out. He's a member of the AFL Indigenous Team of the Century. He was a triple premiership player, both with West Perth and with the Darwin Buffaloes. He played over 16 seasons. He played 343 games, which is the second most in WAFL history. Richard Goyder jumped ahead of the queue at the season launch and announced that this year he's the only person who's been outed, but Bill will be officially entered the Australian Football Hall of Fame at the dinner in early June. So he's an icon in Western Australia, well known nationally, and he's a legend of Australian rules football. And Bill, we salute you. We're thrilled you're going to be the honoree this year. So he took the reins in WA today to launch Sir Doug Nicholls round over there. We've just had a launch of the MCG. We're doing this nationally, and it's launching 2 fabulous rounds. Clearly, we have Dreamtime, Richmond and Essendon this Saturday night at the MCG. We've got the Marngrook game the following weekend on the Friday night with Sydney and Richmond. We're going back to the top end. We've got 2 games across round 11 and 12 with the featuring the Gold Coast Suns at Darwin's TIO Stadium. It is, as Tanya described, just a wonderful celebration of the contribution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to our game across the board. We get to tell stories, acknowledge just how deep they are in the fabric of our game, and it's a pleasure to be here and happy to take any questions.
I guess, as you said, the AFL rejects all forms of racism and discrimination. Last year we had a very high-profile case involving a player. Are you comfortable with how the league handled it, how all parties have handled it?
Yeah, people have had a lot to say about it, but absolutely, and it's a model that actually puts the victim at the centre of it. Tanya was involved in that reconciliation process, and there's been obviously a sanction and a broader process that's played out. We're actually it's about reconciling the two parties, and I feel that's played out here. And we followed the process to the letter, and the process was informed by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and it's a very specific process. I think people who have views on it need to understand that from the outside.
Does it make this year's, I guess, Sir Doug Nicholls round even more important? It's more important than it already is to celebrate Indigenous culture, do you understand?
I think the celebration is always there. People are just so proud of our Indigenous players, male and female, and they are stars of our game. We also know that we're on a journey, and there are people making mistakes, and there are issues of racism in the game and across the community, and that we are by by these people's mistakes. We get to have conversations, and each step I think we get better along the journey, and that's certainly part of it, and it's not something we shy away from.
Tanya, do you feel there's been real progress made on account of that? Echoing Gillon's point there is from what was a really traumatic incident for a number of parties, that from what happened last year, that there's been real progress made?
Look, I can't speak for any of them, but certainly from a process perspective, we feel like it's been handled really well, and it did happen just after we had completed a review of the rule, so it had been updated. We didn't expect to give it a test run as soon as we did, but I think, you know, it's definitely been informed by the experiences of previous victims and other people, and I think it's important to know that, you know, once the process finishes, the process continues for people most closely involved. And we know that to be true. We know that education is ongoing. And I think that is something that we should just embrace and see as a positive.
Can I ask you about the AFLW? Do you think that it's a situation that the playing code will have been put in despair at the moment? There's a lot of uncertainty around these things.
I understand the challenges. I'm confident we'll get an arrangement in the next 24, 36 hours. It's important that we have the right outcome for our female players, and also for the 18 clubs. We're going to an 18 club competition, and for female football generally. I hope people understand that you know, the moving to a early start date without a collective bargaining, these things take some time. Our players know we will be playing in August. Clubs have been given provisional dates. Feel we're close. Spoke to Paul Marsh in the car on the way here, and I'm optimistic we'll have an announcement in the next hour or so.
I guess to talk about 18 clubs, do you feel like will you look to expand the number of games over the next three?
That's certainly been part of the discussions. Clearly, we know that the broadly speaking, the female playing cohort want to play more, you know, a longer season. It's also, you know, our view is we're bringing 4 more teams on board, and that we want to consolidate before we expand. So that obviously is something we've been discussing. It's a real issue for the female players, I know that, and obviously we're having a view that we're going from 14 to 18, and we want to consolidate before we expand, and that's obviously something that's been a key part of the discussions.
Gillon, just when we thought the umpire dissent issue being put to bed, it sort of reared its head on the weekend. Where do you sit with that? Are you confident that you're heading in the right direction, or is it still a work in progress?
I think we flagged there was going to be some issues when you go, when you basically make a significant change, and that was what it was. But the clear mandate for the rule, I think everyone believes in, and then you actually got to execute it. And I actually believe it's pretty easy. Get on with it. Stop complaining. The umpire's not going to change his decision. And the concept of actually that we're an emotional game, so you have to dispute a decision, I don't agree with. So I think we're down to a couple. We saw, I think it was 2 on the weekend, probably in the Bulldogs game on Friday night you're referring to, I think. I watched a lot of football. I was at 3 games myself. I'm very proud of the way our players have adapted. I know they believe in themselves. I know there's still outliers, but each week it's got better, and I don't really think it's much of an issue. Now, people want to perpetuate it. For those who are worried about the margin or can't, I think the players are generally doing a hell of a job playing football and getting on, and it looks much better, and it's having a huge impact at community football, and we appreciate what the players are doing.
What's been the feedback from the clubs? Has there been any confusion?
No, I think that's overblown, personally. I think, well, I'll look to the players here. I'm at risk here. There's been a significant amount of discussion pre-season, tapes, videos, others, been pretty clear, and there's constant feedback. And, you know, I think the umpires and Brad Scott acknowledged there was a couple of free kicks that should have been blown, and I think the confusion is not about the rule, it's about when it hasn't been applied perfectly, and we take responsibility for that.
Is there an update on the grand final at all? The AFL Commission said to me sooner rather than later. Could you just take us inside perhaps some of the sticking points or what gets discussed there?
I think the simple discussion is what's the best presentation of the game, the biggest game of the year. We've had a look at it through twilight was a twilight in Perth that played out in a night game, and we had a night game in Queensland. We won't be going tonight, it'll be a twilight or a day. And on the other side, it's, you know, decades and decades, and over 100 years have been playing at somewhere to something. And We respect that people like their rituals and the traditions, and that's on the other side. So is the game presented better for the biggest game of the year to an incredible, to 4 or 5 million people, as opposed to people, the core of our game, a lot of people like the tradition of 2:30. So that's the heart of the discussion, I think, and I think people understand that.
Are you personally though in the twilight camp?
Sorry.
Are you twilight? Is that where you personally?
Do you want me to tell everyone? I think it'd be a really good discussion, and I think clearly I'm not going to discuss it here in advance of a commission meeting, but I guess I want to acknowledge to all our supporters, we understand a lot of people don't want it to change, but also when you look at how it's been presented the last couple of years, there are also a lot of people who really like the twilight slot and think it presents well. So I think that's the job of the commission to make these decisions, and that'll be played out in the next little bit.
With this being your last Sir Doug Nicholls round, what's your proudest moment and what do you think it's done for the game as a whole?
It's a great question. I get a lot of pride about the relationship we have through our game with Indigenous Australia, and I get pride sitting here with Uncle Mickey and I, and such a beautiful acknowledgement of the country. I get pride in these incredible athletes and these boys on either side of me playing and being courageous and being great players and being such a huge part of our game. The second part of your question was?
What do you think is like the impact that it's left on the game as a whole?
I think the biggest part of what this does is actually shine a light on Indigenous culture and initiates conversations across the communities. So there's such a huge part of this, and unashamedly it's celebrating the contributions over decades of not just players but Indigenous peoples in our game, First Nations people in our game, and how important they are in Australian football. But it's broader than that. It's conversation about what's going on in the community and what's going on across the country, and we take that responsibility seriously. And we know we don't get anything right, but we feel confident that every year we're getting better.
So just some questions for the guys. Lachie, Tanya?
Yeah, sure. Can we move the mics over to Corey? Is that all right?
Do you want me to swap out? Thanks, everyone. Get on to the important stuff. 11 and 12. You want to stay here?
Fellas, the jumpers look amazing. Just Lachie, I know you designed yours. Maybe if you please take on just to share a few tales about what it means to you to design it and what the jump racing means itself.
Yeah, so it was a good opportunity to honour my nana on my dad's side. She passed away a couple of years ago, and yeah, obviously the main piece on the front is the brolga, and that was her totem animal. So conversations started about the Guernsey end of last year with Chris Davies, and I was honoured to be given this opportunity. And in terms of everything else, just sort of talks about Nana's journey and people involved. So yeah, that's pretty much base.
And I'm sure your teammates were stunned by the design. What was their feedback? They were pretty proud?
Yeah, so I showed the group on Thursday last week before main training, and got a lot of feedback from the boys, which was nice. So yeah.
You kind of spoken about the journey to learn more about your nana's, I guess, childhood. When you found out, how's that gone? How's the journey playing out? You got very.
Yeah, so we were actually supposed to go to Borroloola, where she was born in the off-season last year, but of course COVID interrupted that. So still looking forward to hopefully getting up there end of this season. But yeah, in terms of the journey, it still continues, learning bit by bit. And this was a great opportunity for that conversation to come up and keep moving forward, and it's something that will probably happen over the next few years.
You said it tells a story. You mean the pictures on it tell the story of her life?
Yeah, sorry. So she was a part of the stolen generation. So when she was born, obviously she was taken away from her family, and so the pieces here represent where she grew up to where she moved to where she passed away here in York Peninsula. It sort of talks about her journey from Northern Territory to here.
Do you say to Ken, Malcolm, me,
Yeah, I would hope it would sort of lean towards getting a pick, but at the end of the day,
Come on,
it's
Ken.
not much.
Come on, Ken. Seriously.
It would be nice to be able to play in both games, yes.
And same for you, Wayne.
Yeah, look, I'm just waiting and see how we go. So, yeah, building some form in the sample, and yeah, I've been out of the game for a long time, so 2 years. So, I think it's just been good playing footy again. So, yeah.
So Nick hasn't given you the call up just yet. You expect?
Nah, not yet. I'm just I'm sort of, like I said, building my form there and just waiting.
Julian, how's the last couple of years been for you, mate? I mean, you played round one. Nixie said you might spend sort of 4 or 5 weeks in the sample to build fitness, but you're still there, you're still building. Could you just talk to us about the last couple of years and now what it's like being back on the park and just how relieved you are?
Yeah, like as anyone would know, it's been in rehab or with long-term injuries. They're pretty tough, and you spend a lot of the time, doing sessions by yourself, and yeah, it's definitely tough. It'd be tough for anyone. But yeah, like I said, it's been awesome back playing footy. We don't try to make the AFL to sit and be injured and do rehab sessions, and so yeah, like I said, it's been awesome being back just playing footy, and the sample team at the moment's going pretty well. So and that's been good to see, because last year I was on the bench with them just doing some coaching, and yeah, they didn't have quite a good year. So it's good to see some of them boys see some winning form, and I guess it's putting pressure on the boys up top in the AFL team. So.
Are you fit? How's your body feeling now?
Yeah, it's feeling really good. Like I said, a couple of years out of the game, and you sort of forget about how footy's played, and not how played, but the physical toll it takes on you. And I've played good 8 or 9 games now in a row, which has been good. So yeah.
So if you got the call up, you'd be more than confident?
Yeah, I'll be more than confident, but just I've gone through some stuff with Nixie that I've got to work on, and yeah, I'll continue to work on that until I'm ready to go up in the AFL.
How did the body pull up after round one? Did you make me feel like you might come back to AFL footy a bit sooner than you would have liked, or?
Oh, body pulled up well, but like I said, I had some stuff I got to work on, and that was at match fitness and some other things that I've sat down with Nixie and spoke about. So yeah, like I said, I'll continue to work on that and go from there.
How do you feel the jumper?
Yeah, it's good. So Pat Caruso done our one, and it pretty much just brings in the one club bill. So the girls wore it as well, and the sample teams already wore it as well. And we played North Adelaide a few weeks back, and they wore it as well. So yeah, one club. That's the main message around Pat Caruso's design, and he's done a brilliant job. I know the whole club's really loved it.
Very big kind of incident happened at the club last year. So Indigenous leader of the club. How did that affect you? How did that affect you last year?
Yeah, obviously it was pretty tough, and it was very disappointing from my end. Senior figure at the club doing that, someone you look up to, so it was very disappointing. Yeah.
I know Travis said he feels like, I guess everyone's trying to say he's repaired the relationship with Sam. What did he have to do is his relationship repaired with you? What did he have to do to repair his relationship with you?
Yeah, look, it's always going to take time. You take a long time to build a relationship, and when something like that happens, it damages that relationship. So it's not going to be fixed all of a sudden. He's done his apology and said sorry to us, and said sorry to the club, and I think it's just about him now acting on what his actions that he's going to do going forward. And yeah, we've seen that he's taken a trip with us down to Port Augusta in the off season, so that was a step towards that. And yeah, I guess other matters for Tex, that's for you guys to discuss with Tex. But yeah.
What was it like heading out into the land with him? Was it a different experience, or what was it all about?
Oh, look, we sort of planned that a bit before, so with Jeremy Johncock, so we was going up originally, and it was just sort of an invite if you wanted to come up, and they come with us. So there was a couple of other younger boys come as well, Braden Cook and Riley Thilthorpe come along with us as well. So yeah, it's always good to go back to community and yeah, just be amongst people.
Are you really comfortable with Taylor now?
yeah, I'm comfortable with him at the club. Yeah.
How long did it take? Was there kind of one moment where you went, do you feel comfortable, or did it take?
No, well, I can't tell you exactly how long it took, but it definitely took some time to be comfortable, and yeah.
Are you proud to sort of play a role in the reconciliation, and not that it's your responsibility to help Taylor, but to be involved in the discussions, to help him, to help build the community? Was that something you were happy to be involved in? I mean, I
Yeah.
thought you wouldn't be involved in any of it at all, of
Yeah.
course, but when it happened, you're open to being involved in it?
Yeah, I definitely was open to be involved in it. It was a pretty full-on time and pretty stressful, but just to voice your feelings to him, and sort of voice the feelings of community that was like pressure from my end, just to put that on him again, like it sort of, he got the feeling of like how we were feeling. So yeah, obviously it would have been good if it didn't happen, but yeah.
Do you feel like he has been remorseful? He has learned it. Is he walk the walk to an extent following it?
So what was that?
Do you feel like he has been remorseful and learned his lesson and he's acted on what he said he was going to do as part of the
Yeah, he was remorseful for it. But yeah, like I said, he's still doing his things, and I'm not exactly sure what they are. They're probably more a question for him, but yeah.
Thanks, guys. Any other questions?
Yeah, do you mind if I just about the jumpers? They look great on both of you. Would it be great to see you both on the same ground at the same time, perhaps? Gil, is there
Someone who can help with that.
a little showdown sort of number we can put together?
The challenge, yeah,
Each team wants their own home game.
that's right. Each team wants their own home game. So, I came from South Australia. I understand how big those games are, and I think that both clubs like the fact they can tell their stories during Sir Doug Nicholls round, and then they do what they do during the showdown. So, if the clubs wanted that, I'm sure we could arrange that. But I reckon they probably like keeping it a bit clean. But if they've got any issues, they can reach out to me. They do look amazing, these jumpers.
Last question. Tanya, I just wanted to get your insight as to what some of your proudest moments are for Sir Doug Nicholls round and what it means to you to be a part of it.
Look, it's a huge privilege. I'd be lying if I didn't feel a bit smug during Sir Doug Nicholls round, and I think a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people do, because you just look at the performance of Indigenous players over the years in the game, and it's pretty outstanding, the number of Indigenous players that win Mark of the Year and Goal of the Year, and we just saw Buddy reach 1,000 goals, and like there's no end to the accolades that Indigenous players receive, and so that's great to see that celebrated, and that it means a lot to community as well. I think the way that players feel like they want to communicate to their own mobs, through celebrating a goal with a bit of a dance. You see a bit more of that in Sir Doug Nicholls round. Makes me feel really proud.
I know Tanya was incredibly proud that when we couldn't play Dreamtime game in Melbourne the last couple of years, to go to Darwin in 2020 was unbelievable. And who did the Welcome to Country?
Yeah, Uncle Richard Fijo.
He was a superstar. And then to go and sell out Optus Stadium last year, I just think that was a pretty special thing for obviously the clubs. That I know Tanya was very proud of that too. Yeah,
I was actually. Really proud of the Nicky Winmar statue, which came out in NAIDOC year in 2019, and I guess the continuation of storytelling of what I consider black excellence through our game is just incredible, and I really love that we now have an honoree every year, and to see the younger players show honour and respect to these elders from the history of the game is very, very special. I feel really lucky to have any role at all, really. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.